A collision is occurring. Oh, straight in, top story out of the Warner Brothers Discovery upfronts. We can bring you a whole bunch of details about AEW's brand new TV show, AEW Collision.
As suspected by many, but this has really ironed out a lot of the specific details. We've learned a lot of different things, including some of the returning names, some of the featured names, the start date. We're going to go through everything in this video. There's also an official press release as well. And I guess Tony will say something about it on tonight's show.
I think we'll touch on that, won't we? Yeah. So Warner Brothers Discovery held their upfronts today. This is something that a lot of the big media companies have been doing all week, looking ahead to the future, looking at changes and plans for the business. Now, this presentation came with a talk across the entire board of Warner Brothers, but some emphasis on AEW. In fact, at one point, as well as clips from the show, there was a graphic that showed Jade Cargill as sort of being presented as the face of TBS.
Right, you had their different networks under the umbrella, and you had like for example, the TNT guy was represented, like that was a hockey player, but then the TBS one was Jade Cargill, which makes me think that's very interesting. The fact that even in this event where wrestling's like a tiny portion of it, they've looked at Jade Cargill and thought she's a good representative of TBS. She's not only the TBS champion, but I guess to a non-wrestling audience, she's visually very striking as well.
Visually very striking, yeah. So we were watching along, keeping up to date with everything happening, and AEW sort of broke the news before their upfronts mentioned.
Right.
Via their social medias, they announced everything about AEW Collision. We've got some notes from the press release that came just ahead of their announcement out of Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Yes, they've said this live 2-hour in-ring show, so that's the first bit to note there. It's going to be a 2-hour show. Will air every Saturday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time and feature more wrestlers, more stories, and more action to super serve the fans. AEW Collision. This is now. So we've got the time, we've got the day of the week that it's on. Now these are some of the key names mentioned as, I guess, central figures on AEW Collision. It will feature headliners including Miro, Samoa Joe, Thunder Rosa, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Andrade El Idolo.
We'll break down some of those in a little bit, because there was a few of the names that we think are connected with Collision as well, which we will get to. One quite obvious, which we'll talk about as well. Yeah. The press release goes on to say, we're doubling down on wrestling with AEW Collision, which gives fans 2 more hours every week. This is a quote from Jason Sarlanis, who is the president of Turner Networks, ID and HLN, part of Linear and Streaming. AEW's roster of talent has expanded so quickly, we felt it needed another night to bring our audience epic rivalries, unforgettable matches, and stars they love to watch. Adding Collision to our programming mix on TNT will allow us to satisfy the massive demand that we have felt from our hardcore fan base and be the ultimate complement to AEW Dynamite on TBS.
It's quite interesting. I'm thinking as well, will they switch? It would only make sense to have the TNT champion on the TNT show as well.
Yeah.
Now that Dynamite's over on TBS.
Well, that might be a big part of where the roster ends up falling. Tony Khan has given a quote as well for the press release. With the addition of AEW Collision on TNT, I'm extremely proud that a Turner Network will be the home of Saturday Night Wrestling for the first time in more than 2 decades. Hi, WCW Saturday Night. How you doing? The debut of Collision is significant across numerous sectors, including television, wrestling, entertainment, and sports, and reinforces AEW as the bold property we envisioned when we launched in 2019. Collision will deliver live every Saturday night more of what the fans and viewers tell us they want: athleticism, big personalities, exciting storylines, and hard-hitting wrestling action, all of which become synonymous with AEW. That's from Tony Khan. Sean Ross Sapp joins us this point in the conversation. Fightful Select adding a bit of meat to the bone of this announcement.
Yes, they were saying, we haven't heard that Dynamite has also been extended, but we did note recently that Collision will see a big cash infusion for AEW. So prior to this announcement, people were thinking maybe it'll be accompanied by an announcement that Dynamite's being extended. That hasn't been confirmed yet, but from the language they've used there in the press release and everything, it seems very much like, if I had to guess, I'd say they will extend Dynamite, just because it seems to all be like,
they didn't.
Yes, and all the language seems to be like in conjunction or on top of Dynamite. We've also got this new show, you know what I mean? So
it's a complement rather than a replacement.
Exactly, yes. Also, Fightful Select reporting, as of last week, this is where it gets very interesting. As of last week, Sean Ross Sapp says it was believed that there would be a soft roster split between AEW Dynamite and Collision. So they wouldn't definitively say, this is a Dynamite wrestler, this person's a Collision wrestler. But there'd be a general divide, and you might see it broken now and then when it's convenient. But that's kind of changed recently, hasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, Sean Ross Sapp says, instead we are told that the talent are expecting a hard brand split. With the exception of many AEW champions. We have been told there'll be an additional exception here and there. The Backstage talk says that those that have been spoken to said that bringing back several previously absent talent was planned out, and they were told it was strategic timing to go along with the new show. In addition to talent that naturally needs more television time, several returning talent look to benefit from this move as well.
That's very interesting indeed, because a lot of us assumed that when this show came about, given some of the names rumoured to be linked to the show, who perhaps don't get on with other key figures backstage in AEW, that there would be some sort of split. But this report from Sean Ross Sapp, I think, is a little bit more I guess, explicit than I thought. It's a bit more obvious. They've said, no, he said basically they are now expecting a hard brand split between the two.
You've probably noticed the logo by now as well. That is by design to look a little bit like one that you remember from Off of the Past. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful saying that there is indeed a WCW Nitro influence to graphics tied to Collision. Oh, that's what it is.
I thought it was the Belgian football team. But he's clearly influenced by Nitro as well, I guess. Yeah,
it could be both. It could be both. So we mentioned there at the beginning a few of those names that were focused on in the press release as part of AEW Collision. But the poster that was published on AEW socials gives us a few more names that we could see popping up to fight on a Saturday night.
Yes.
So they include the AEW World Tag Champions FTR, the AEW International Champion Orange Cassidy, and the World Champion MJF.
And as noted in the report, maybe these champions would be kind of floating champions who aren't tied down to one of the two brands in particular.
Thunder Rosa, Miro, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and the House of Black.
Yeah, very
also
prominent in the graphic.
Prominently.
Right at the front as well, with Julia Hart involved as well. I guess she's an official member now. That would be interesting. They are the Trios champions, of course, so they could pop up here and there, I guess. But I think they are one of, like how it was mentioned before, talents that basically need more TV time. I think they're excellent, and they're one of the examples of people I would definitely like to see more who could benefit from Collision.
Absolutely. Now, there's one name in amongst there that I think we're all expecting to hear today, and it's about quarter to clobbering, I would say, as opposed to clobbering time per se.
Oh, the CM Punk, right.
A lot of people.
I thought you meant Michael Nakazawa.
I mean,
where's he going to end up?
Oh,
you know?
Where is he going to go? Should he stay or should he go? Now, there's a lot of conversation was around CM Punk being involved in Collision, and nothing was said about CM Punk at this point in time. No. However, as we have deciphered, June 17th is the start date of this brand spanking new show. From there, every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. June 17th, they're at the United Center in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago.
Oh, now, they had it coming.
I guess the mystery here is, would they do what they did with Rampage and have him as the worst kept secret in the world and turn up unannounced? Or because you think, maybe they will, because surely they would have already announced him by now if they were going to ahead of time.
Well, now, it could still happen. At the time of recording, this is just following the upfronts from Warner Brothers and Discovery. Now, Tony Khan said last week that there would be an announcement regarding AEW that they would follow up on AEW Dynamite. So, we've had the announcement. I guess now we wait for the follow-up on Dynamite tonight.
Yes, I'm very fascinated to see what that is, because last week we obviously saw Miro turn up out of nowhere after months away from our screens. We saw Thunder Rosa turn up after a long time away as well, dealing with injury. They both went into Tony Khan's office in little backstage segments. We didn't learn much more. Are we going to see possibly Andrade? He's the name who jumps out at me from these mentioned names in the press release, because Andrade, like Miro, I guess, there's been reports of creative disagreements backstage. There was the whole reported incident with Sammy Guevara, which apparently they came to blows, and Andrade was, I think, suspended or certainly sent home for a bit. So is he going to turn back up? Is Collision going to be a place where basically those who've had creative differences with Tony Khan go? And if that's the case, what on earth's going to happen? It's quite interesting.
Are you suggesting the Collision could be about to become the naughty step of professional wrestling?
No, because it's a big, shiny, naughty step, though, isn't it? It's one that you don't necessarily not want to be on. But it's just, I'm really intrigued to see what it's going to be like. And I'm interested to see whether it's going to be Tony at the helm or whether he's going to like kind of delegate responsibility. The way that Tony's handled AEW so far, I feel like he'll want to have quite a strong handle on it.
Well, at the same time, the part of the reason that this is all happening, and this is a big part of the reason why William Washington's been brought on. To kind of work alongside Tony and take a bit of that pressure off there.
I see.
In which, actually, I've not been on a news video since this happened. I am so chuffed for Will Washington.
Oh yeah, he's a good lad.
I've never
interacted with him once. He seems like a great guy.
I've never met him in person, but we've been speaking since about 2005 as Will.
Oh my God.
Me and Will. We go back decades, and good things happening to good people. You love to see it.
I wasn't.
You love to see it.
I don't think I was even a teenager. What?
Yeah.
What?
I had a job working in a warehouse, and Rocket Buster Radio kept me company, and that was Will Washington's seminal podcast work, and we've just stayed in touch ever since. He was a guest on my community radio show back in Worcester in the mid to late teens.
Right.
And we've sort of kept in the loop, and then lo and behold, he's now up there. Good things happening to good people.
When Collision all goes the way that things previously did, and they announce a third brand spanking new show, then congratulations in advance to your role.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it. Obviously, this is a moving beast of a news story, and we will keep you across it throughout the day at cultaholic.com. The one story, the only story, the main story in our news video today. Collision is coming.
Oh my word.
Look busy.
Very excited.
Stay safe. Love you. Bye.